The Mama Club Season 2 on Showmax has come to an end, and we were blessed with a 3-part reunion. Honey, I don't think anybody was ready for this. So, just for background, what is the Mama Club? It is a South African reality television show. It sort of steals the idea of the Real Housewives of somewhere. We have this fabulous rich woman who are just welcoming us into their fabulous wealthy lives with their children and nannies, and we follow them around as they host parties, have serious discussions, offend each other, so on and so forth. You see, very similar to the Real Housewives franchise, but except this year they also bring in the nannies. The nannies also have a segment, and yeah, they really center the fact that these ladies are mommies and they spend a lot of time with their children as well. So as I mentioned, it is on its second season and it has come to an end, and it's the reunion. It's time for everybody to confront each other. You said this about me and I did not like it. One thing I want to mention before going in is I seem to have a problem with the reunion of the Mommy Club. I don't like its energy. And I feel like its energy contradicts the energy of the actual show. The actual show, when you are watching it, it is warm, it is inviting. It seems like these ladies are kumbaya-ish, promoting, sisterhood and all that. And then you get to the reunion and it is so aggressive. It is so confrontational. The energies don't match. And I noticed that with the reunion of season 1, I was actually taken aback by it. I actually, in the back of my mind, blamed the host, Utembi Samdoda. I was like, why is she so aggressive towards these ladies, And once again, I just witnessed that with season 2. Dombi is now the host, and she too is so aggressive, so confrontational. I started feeling like these ladies are in court and their crime was against Dombi. The way Dombi was just so, all over these ladies. I mean, Mrs. Sande had a panic attack. At some point, I thought Rati was also just going to break down into tears and cry because Dombi wasn't letting out. Not to mention Mrs. Mops screaming at them. Hi, Mrs. Mopfella. Remember, everybody's an adult. You can't be talking to adults like you're talking to your children. Back to Santa. As I mentioned, we had 3 parts to this reunion, and I'm not going to mention every topic discussed. I think I'm just going to touch and react to the most dramatic ones, according to me. And the first thing that I want to talk about is Mrs. Sande versus the fire. Mother Mary save her, okay? She went through the most in this reunion. Mrs. Mops was coming for Mrs. Sande. She was sitting on Mrs. Sande's neck. And when I tell you Mrs. Sande couldn't breathe, honey, she was choking. Jesus Christ. Mrs. Mops did say that she got a bone to pick with Mrs. Sande, and indeed, she went in. So Mrs. Mops first calls out Mrs. Sande about gossiping about her. And during that event, Mrs. Mops kind of had a heart-to-heart with Mrs. Sande. And she talked about how, she made certain mistakes. And she and her family almost lost their house. It was almost auctioned off. Before the show started, Mrs. Mops did trend over that situation of her and her family almost losing their house. And then a couple of scenes later, Mrs. Sande has a meeting with Rati and Nunurai and tells them all about her discussion with Mrs. Mops. And as such, I think Mrs. Mops was rightfully upset. And Mrs. Sande apologized for it. And, I was like, okay, cool. Mrs. Mops, expressed herself, and Mrs. Sande admitted her guilt and apologized. We're good, but no. The next thing Mrs. Sande was called out about was when they attended, as in the ladies attended Nunurai and Mrs. Manche's party, where it was flowers and fashion. And it seems Mrs. Sande did not like the designs of the outfits. And she said something along the lines of, it all looks cheap, and she was expecting designer. And now it is reunion and everybody is calling her out on it. And Mrs. Sande, ma'am, you were unprepared. You were underprepared. Let me tell you something. If on the show you're going to portray yourself as some type of villain. You need to then prepare for the reunion and be able to have some backbone and stand on what you said on the show. Mrs. Sande, you were not standing on business, okay? Once again, she's been called out about what she said about Mrs. Munch's designs. She's stumbling over the words. She's talking about, that's not what I meant. I was talking about what was on the gifts. It wasn't about the clothes that were on the runway. And I had to... Mrs. Sande, it was so easy for you to get out of this one. You could have literally said, what I meant to say was, none of the clothes were my style. I liked one or two outfits, as I said, but the rest, I didn't like them. And when they say, why did you say they cheap, you could be like, well, that was a little bit tactless. I apologize for that. You see, strategize on how you're going to defend yourself. Still on Mrs. Sande, she was called out for being nice in person and mean during the diary sessions. I feel that the rest of the ladies, when they watched the show later on, they were shocked by some of the comments that Mrs. Sande made. And she was like, no, I'm actually genuinely a very nice person. I'm a nice person. And that's the difficult part for me as the viewer. The person, or rather the Mrs. Sande I saw at the reunion versus the Mrs. Sande I saw on the show are two different women, you know. Mrs. Sande on the show was outspoken, was confident, you know, stood on business, ready to fight anybody. But Mrs. Sande of the reunion, yes, confident and yet so meek and so ready to just roll over and admit defeat. Again, Mrs. Sande, I told you, it's Mrs. Sande versus the fire. Mrs. Sande was also called out, you know, for having an issue with Her Majesty and Rati trying to make peace. And because, you know, Mrs. Sande always came in with the questions like, does she really mean it though when she apologized? Is everything really okay between you guys? And Her Majesty really took offense to that. She didn't like it. She felt like it was not Mrs. Sande's place. And for real, it was not Mrs. Sande's place. It's one thing to be supportive of your friend, because Mrs. Sande and Rati came into this season as friends, and it seemed like they had made a pact with one another to have each other's back. But yeah, I think Mrs. Sande took it too far during the show, you know. Mrs. Sande was just always poking and interrogating the relationship and the authentic the authenticity of the discussions towards peace that Her Majesty and Rati were making. Another person who caught some fire on the first part of the reunion was Rati. She first caught fire from Mrs. Mops. Mrs. Mops attacked pretty much Rati, because in Mrs. Mops' event, Mrs. Mops had gifts for them, some personalized pajamas, and Rati felt that the quality in the pajamas was not to par, and perhaps she might have felt that the pajamas were dirty. And she said that when she opened her gift, and she said that during her diary session as well. But where Rati made a mistake was when she was on a call with Mrs. Mops. She was like, oh my God, the gift is so beautiful. I absolutely loved it. So Mrs. Mops was like, you are fake. You're calling me fake. You're saying I'm not authentic. You're the one who was not authentic. Why wouldn't you say that to my face? But you said it during your diary session. And Mrs. Mops is right. It was Mrs. Mops' events. It was Mrs. Mops that gave you the gift. If you wanted to say something about the gift, since you and Mrs. Mops did talk about the gift, there is your opportunity to say, I love it. I love the thought behind it. But honestly, girl, there's a couple of things that needs to be improved with the, you know, with the craftsmanship or the finishing or the what regarding these gifts. It was absolutely possible to do that, but Rati just was two-faced. And there was another incident where Rati was commenting, I think, on Mrs. Sande, and she mentioned that, you know, when you're new on the show, you try to bring entertainment and you try to bring the drama. Ha! Don't be when ha on Rati, like, what do you mean bring the drama? What do you mean entertaining? Are you telling us that you're curating the show for us? Because a lot of people have been saying that the show is fake. And Rati was trying so hard to answer in a politically correct manner and not offend anybody. And Dombi was sitting on Rati's neck. And I'm like, but people do curate certain things for storyline, for drama, because as much as you're letting us into your life, there has to be some type of cohesive storyline, something, you know. And also when you're meeting up with other ladies, it has to, you guys have to talk about what's happening on the show. So there is some type of prompting and curating going on. And I didn't like the fact that Dombi made it seem like Rati was being fake, telling us that what she presented to us was fake. Dombi girl, I saw what you were doing there. I saw it. Now, moving on to some dramatic moments of part 2. Listen here, Mrs. Mops was the star of the reunion, Honey Boo Boo Child, okay? You thought she was screaming on the first part. The second part, she amped it up. This time, it was Mrs. Mops versus Rati and a little bit of Nunu Rai over the comment that Ratile made about, hey, people are given bedroom positions or arrangements over bedroom positions, because apparently Mrs. Mops was a COO in her husband's company, a tech company. So Ratile was calling out, like, what does Mrs. Mops know about tech for her to be in that position in her husband's company? But of course, as we know since we've watched the show, Rati is so spicy and so shady and very mean. And so her delivery came across as such, and Mrs. Mops was ready to scream at her. She was like, how could you do that? Bam, 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 wah, wah, dow, dow. Oh my goodness, like, how could you say that? How could you say that? And Rati was trying to defend herself. Now, comparing Rati and comparing Mrs. Sande, Rati did her best to go toe-to-toe with Mrs. Mops, but I do still believe that Mrs. Mops still ate Rati up. But I like the fact that Rati stood on business and answered and fought back against Mrs. Mops, because listen, if you want us to discuss this, which I said, don't you dare scream at me. The moment you're screaming at me and pointing at me and dow, raw, you are attacking me, and as such, I'm gonna attack back. And I could see Rati is trying to attack back. You know, of course, the comment that Rati made was mean. She did deserve to be called out about it. But since Mrs. Mops was attacking, I'm down with the fact that Rati was fighting back. Of course, Rati failed, but she gave it a good fight. Still on the subject matter of Mrs. Mops then tried to come for Nunu Rai, you know, because there was some type of a party, and Nunu Rai made a comment along the lines of, where you going, Beyonce? And she made that after she was talking about the outfit that Mrs. Mops was wearing. I do believe, if I remember correctly, this particular comment was instigated by Ndombi, trying to make it seem like it was bigger than it was. Oh, come on. Remember, when you deliver commentary during your diary sessions, you have to be a little bit spicy. And this comment regarding where you're going, Beyonce, that was just a little bit of spice. It did not even deserve to make it into the list of things spoken about in the reunion. Honestly, they were grasping at straws. They wanted something to use to attack Nunu Rai. But honey, this is Nunu Rai. One thing about Nunu Rai, she gonna talk back. She gonna fight for herself. She gonna stand for herself. And she did defend that point about where you going, Beyonce. That no, based on your outfits, this is what I said, and it was not malicious at all. But then Mrs. Mops had to move on, since Nunu Rai was able to defend that where you going, Beyonce comment. Mrs. Mops then moved the goalpost and brought something else that Mrs. Mops didn't like that Nunu Rai did, and it was that bet that Nunu Rai proposed when she was talking to Rati about, is Mr. Mops gonna come to that party, you know? And Mrs. Mops was mad at the reunion. She was at the edge of her seat, pointing at Nunu Rai and so unhappy. How could you talk about my husband like that, Nunu Rai? She was going in, and is that mean to imitate her voice? But her voice is so unique. How can I not imitate her voice? But anyways, I must stop. Yeah, I should stop. And Nunurai was standing on business, honey, defending herself. She was like, yes, we'd already spoken about this. And you did say that Mr. Mops is not coming, didn't you? And then Mrs. Mops was like, but how dare you? How could? And then Mrs. Mops was like, was your husband? And Nunurai is like, no, my husband wasn't there. I knew my husband wasn't coming. But like... Nunurai was gaslighting the bejesus out of Mrs. Mops. I loved it for the entertainment. I love it for the fact that you are being attacked and you're fighting back for yourself. But come on, Nunurai. You had no business making that bet about another woman's husband. Absolutely. I don't think that these ladies should be bringing up each other's husbands in any of their discussions and talks. But did Nunurai apologize? No. So in this one with Nunurai and Mrs. Mops, I feel like they were equal. Both of them went head to head and it was a draw. Okay. They circled back, honey, to Mrs. Sande because girl had a lot to say. Like, guys, Mrs. Sande said a lot during her diary sessions. She did deserve to be called out on a lot of the things that she said. I do feel like certain things, it wasn't necessary. They were not as malicious as in the reunion they made it out to be. And this is one of the things. There was a point where Mrs. Sande made the comment along the lines that it looks like Mrs. Mops is the leader and Uhappy is her deputy and stuff like that. And I don't see what's wrong with that. I don't see why anybody would interpret that to mean something wrong and malicious. When you are new in a group, you are observing the dynamics, and the person who seems to lead activities, who seems to be introducing this person to that person to you, the new person, it looks like they are the leader, and the one that is closest to them kind of comes across as the deputy. So to me, I felt like confronting Mrs. Sande about that, it was ridiculous, man. Like, they were just ganging up on Mrs. Sande and Dombi, Mrs. Mops, and Her Majesty were all at some point talking to Mrs. Sande about this stupid, lousy comment at the same time. I don't think it was a big deal. Honey, they sat on Mrs. Sande. They sat on that lady. They played a montage of her shady moments. They confronted her relationship with Rati. Like, when did you meet? How did you meet Rati? They then zeroed in on this comment that Mrs. Sande made to Happy. Something along the lines of, Happy must conduct herself like an educated woman or whatnot and whatnot. At that point, I could tell, like, Mrs. Sande has given all she could give into this. She has said all the I'm sorries that she could say in this reunion. She was running low. Girl was getting depleted, okay? She literally, when Dombi asked her, what did you mean by that comment? Mrs. Sande was like, I really don't want to talk about it. Girl was tired, you know. And, you know, nobody was picking up on it. Everybody decides to jump in and gang up on her. Ulo Kuzane. Mrs. Mops right next to her with her hand. This Mrs. Mops is getting on Mrs. Sande's personal space, and I did not like that. Like, yeah, confront and talk, but just stay in your own personal perimeter. Don't be wearing her. And you know, Her Majesty was also trying to have her piece heard regarding that comment. I think at some point they roped in Nosy, asked Nosy, what do you think a person who makes a comment like this, what do they say? And Nosy also just added more fire to the fire, and Mrs. Sande was struggling child, okay? She did try to talk back to Nosy. She did respond to Nosy because Nosy at some point was like, own your shit. And Mrs. Sun was like, yeah, I am owning the shit. What does it look like I'm doing? What do you then want me to do? You know? So I appreciate her interaction with Nosy, but she was already tired at that point. And then they asked her, why did you join the show? I think girl was just tired. She had a panic attack. She was in tears and she left the stage. So the tail end of part 2 ends with the discussion of Barbara. Barbara was Rati's nanny, whom by the end of season 1 no longer worked for Rati. And with the beginning of season 2, we discovered that it seemed like Rati might have let her go, might have fired her. So there was a whole lot of drama with Barbara, the nanny, telling Her Majesty certain things about what happened between her and Rati's family, Rati's husband, how everything came, to an end. Barbara really seemed very hurt during the show about this entire thing. And so there was an incident where Her Majesty wanted to bring this up with Rati, like what happened between you, and Nunurai stepped in. Nunurai was like, whatever you're gonna say, you better know that it is the truth, because I could sue you for she could sue you for defamation, and I will personally pay for the lawyers. So that whole thing was brought up, like, why would you say you're gonna pay for the lawyers? There was a long and loud back and forth between Nunurai and Her Majesty. Don't be less controlled of the show, because these two, not even one of them wanted to let go. Yeah, you shouldn't have spoken about that. I don't even know what the hell they were saying, but it went on and on and on and on. Eventually, Ntombi was able to get them to calm down. She was like, we don't need to act like hooligans, ladies. If you think hooligan is the right word to use. You wait another week. Boom. Part 3. Barbara's in the building, and Mrs. Sande is also back. And so we have this long, drawn-out discussion between Barbara and Rati regarding what really happened. I don't think I know what really happened, okay? Rati was giving evasive answers, but in summary, I think we can all agree that Rati let her go. Rati's husband let her go. Whatever led up to the situation, Rati says that it seems like Barbara changed. It kind of looked like Barbara was just not delivering like she used to before she appeared on TV. Maybe Barbara thought that she was a celebrity nanny, and there were things that Barbara was just not doing properly anymore. And Rati said that she and her husband had sit-down sessions with Barbara numerous times, about 3 times, to ask her about her conduct, what's going on, you need to pick up yourself, and she said that with Barbara leaving, she was kind of given some type of a choice, and it seems like Barbara chose to leave. But Barbara's story is a little bit different. I'm not even sure what Barbara's story is, but there's something along the lines of she was let go on a Thursday and she was supposed to be paid on a Friday, but she never received the money. So she took them to the CCMA and she was paid out $17,000, and she's so bitter about it because she's given these people about 7.5 years being loyal, being a good employee, and to be just let go like that and only be given $17,000 is unfair. It is unfair. It's bloody unfair. Honestly, I understand why Barbara is so bitter. And Tommy tried to ask Rati about it, and Rati was like, listen, the CCMA just has a way of doing things, okay? And they knew what they look at when they made that decision. It's the CCMA that made that decision. Good cover, Rati. Real good. So yeah, basically that. The show moved on. I thought it would be over after that, but no. It continued for like, part 3 was 1 hour and 40 minutes long. The hell. Anyways, next was Noah's situation. Of course, always heartfelt. Don't be started by saying that a lot of people feel like Noza curated the entire thing just in terms of her being on the show, The Mommy Club, and certain things in her personal life being revealed, that her husband is taking a second wife, and that, you know, certain videos getting leaked into the public. People felt like, it seems like, you know, she planned the whole thing, I guess, for some type of effect. I never thought so. I never felt that Nosy did that. And she was like, no, she didn't. She would never do that. You know, if you haven't walked a mile in her shoes, you'd never understand what she was going through. She just continued to express her feelings regarding the situation, her concern over her marriage, her concern over her children who are just witnessing all this. And honestly, I've made 2 videos about Nosy's situation. The reunion hasn't made me change my opinion in a situation. It is really sad and unfair that her husband put her and their family in this predicament. And she is still together with her husband. I mean, me as a woman on the couch, not going through what she went through, not being part of the 17-year plan, Oh, I don't know. Maybe I might have wanted her to say I'm leaving, even though I didn't think she would, because she never had a plan B. To her, this was forever. So yeah, she's just gonna have to find a way to make it work. After Nose's segment, we moved on to something about these women trending on social media. I don't care about things that didn't happen on camera, so I'ma skip that and move on to the last subject discussed on the show, and it was Her Majesty's trip to the Val. Her Majesty took the ladies to the Val. It was sort of like the season finale event. It was a mess. It was supposed to be a healing session. No healing took place because I think the teams, they're just so divided that they're never going to be united. On this side, we have the Nunurai Rati Mrs. Sande. On the other side, we have the Her Majesty Mrs. Mops and Nosy team. Even though Nosy doesn't have beef with anyone, but she's just somehow found herself on this team. There was a healing evening picnic that just went south. Somebody during the picnic suggested that, oh, how about we say nice things about each other? It started out well, but when Happy was saying beautiful things about Mrs. Mouse, and she's like, look, you're such a lady, a girl's girl, I love this and this about you, and as I say this, I'm not even buying face, I really mean it. Rati was like, you're kissing her ass. That just ruined everything. It set Happy off. Happy and Rati had a screaming match, and then Rati got on her high horse and she's the one who left. So that was brought up, that was discussed, and in a backhanded type of way, Rati did admit her fault. She said that she was so rude. So I guess that's as close as we're ever gonna get to an apology from Rati for that comment. She should have apologized. There was absolutely no need. You know, you could have kept your mouth shut if you had nothing nice to say and just go with the flow. And another thing then that was focused on was Her Majesty, that session that she had with the medium during her healing during her healing getaway. She had arranged for a medium for the ladies, so she herself also had to sit down with the medium. That lady was good. Okay, that lady, she was so calm, she was good. The things she brought up with Happy was so freaking vulnerable, and like, girl, may the Lord give you all the strength that you need to just withstand everything, you know. In the reunion, the part of that whole session that Happy had with the medium was when she felt like her husband should come and fetch her. Like, she wants to join him. She wants to, you know, she can give up. And somebody was like, what about your kids? Like, the kids will be fine. So, you know, they briefly talked about that. And Tombo was like, listen, don't ever feel like you want to give up on your kids. Always fight another day. That's something positive from Tombo for a change. Gah. So yeah, I think this is where I'm going to leave it. And this is my take on the reunion. I absolutely enjoyed it. Enjoyed the entirety of the show. If you have made it this far on the video, please do me a favor and bless me by subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. And also let me know what is your opinion of the Mummy Club as a whole and the reunion. Thank you so much. Good night.